Come to order. The clerk will determine the presence of a quorum. With a quorum being present, I'm now going to move to the co-chair for a motion to approve the minutes from November 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the adoption of the minutes from the November 3rd meeting. Thank you.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from November 3rd, 2025 meeting, say aye. All those opposed say no. I declare the minutes approved. Moving on to our next order of business, we're going to have a discussion on advanced energy transmission technologies from Ken Rosenfeld, who will be representing Pew Charitable Trust.
Thank you. Great.
Please, for your first time testifying in front of this committee, can you please raise your right hand?
Absolutely.
Do you swear that anything you testify before us today is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Rose, Chair Anderson, members of the committee. Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. My name again is Ken Rosenfeld. I'm an officer with the Energy Modernization Project with the Pew Charitable Trust. I'm based in Washington, D.C. My colleague, Yaron Miller, was supposed to be here today. He got stuck at the airport last night trying to get here, so I'm going to try to pinch hit. This weather is already causing some havoc out there, but I'm glad I made it here today. Yaron certainly sends his apologies and looks forward to meeting with you whenever possible, hopefully soon. The Pew Charitable Trust, hopefully you've come across us before. We are a nonpartisan nonprofit founded back in 1948. Since that founding, Pew's been working at what we think of as the intersection between data research and public policy to identify some of the leading challenges facing the country, try to identify actionable solutions. Our energy modernization project that Yaron and I work on is specifically focused on assisting, however needed, state policymakers across the country, federal policymakers, to very simply make sure we have a reliable energy grid moving forward. A couple of things we'll talk about today, and I'll be as brief as I can on these issues. We'll talk a little bit about the challenges and opportunities related to our current electrical grid, specifically focus on advanced transmission technologies. This is a solution that we think is very promising to give grid operators more capacity, to increase our existing infrastructure, and give just a couple of quick examples of how some other states are already starting to move on this issue. I'm going to throw up just a couple quick statistics, maybe just 3 numbers on the screen that represent some of the challenges you're already hearing about, that we're already hearing about. First is growth. We think record growth in energy demand, right? So we've been going through a period where a lot of experts thought demand was flat, maybe even going down. That is not the case anymore. There are a lot of factors for that. You've heard about a lot of them. Could be the increase in data centers to some degree, other large load customers, manufacturing, a push toward electrification. But regardless, according to at least one leading consulting firm, ICF, electricity demand is projected to grow 25% by 2030 from 2023 levels. So this is a huge number. Projected to be a 78% increase by 2050. Next number I'll note is that we don't have adequate transmission infrastructure in the country, much of which is already decades behind its intended design life. These numbers just show that it's inadequate for what we need to meet. According to one estimate, 2,300 gigawatts of energy generation projects are sitting in queue waiting to supply power to the grid. We just need the transmission infrastructure. And one last number If we want to provide new transmission infrastructure in the form of new power lines, new towers, that can take as much as 10 years of planning. Can cost a lot of money, a lot of years, a lot of permitting, so we know how serious that challenge is if we go in that direction. Another consequence, and I know it will be a little hard to see this map, another consequence of not having this transmission capacity is grid congestion. The congestion on the electrical grid raises prices for consumers. It's bottlenecks, just like with traffic. Transmission operators dispatch the lowest cost energy first, but when there's high demand, when there's high outages, the grid can lack the capacity to deliver the lowest cost electricity to where it's needed. Instead, more expensive generation is sent or dispatched along existing lines. Nationwide, this is estimated to cost consumers $12 billion a year because of congestion on the grid. So we're going to focus just for a minute on what we think is kind of an elegant solution to some of these problems, or at least an efficient and less expensive solution, which again is called Advanced Transmission Technologies, or ATTs. These are hardware or software solutions that increase capacity of existing infrastructure. Depending on the technology, this can be a very significant increase in capacity. It can even double using existing infrastructure. So essentially, can we wring more out of our existing energy infrastructure? The benefits, we think, are multiple and significant. They can increase the capacity. They can be deployed quickly, as soon as in some cases in a matter of months. They can be deployed in a targeted manner at specific bottlenecks. They can minimize land use impacts using existing infrastructure, existing rights of way. So it can lead directly to cost savings and uptake in lower cost energy. These technologies can pay for themselves fairly quickly, we think in sometimes as much as 6 months. Essentially, there are two types of ATTs, Advanced Transmission Technologies. This first one I'll mention, dynamic line rating systems, are essentially sensors on the existing lines. Using, again, transmission infrastructure sensors to measure existing conditions. That includes weather conditions. That means the grid operators can safely boost power to where it's needed, well beyond the fixed rating. They also give grid operators increased awareness about what's happening on the grid, essentially making the system a little smarter. If there's a wildfire, if there's a problem with a particular tower or a particular line, they'll know what to do even faster. One case study on these sensors comes from Indiana, where the utility showed they could deploy this technology within 2 months, plus another couple weeks for installation after they were done with the planning. And they are already reporting significant capacity increases. And the second ATT I'll mention is high performance conductors, essentially swapping out the existing lines on the existing towers. These transmission lines can carry, in some cases, over double the capacity through their efficient design and materials. On the left is a conventional wire, which has a steel core reinforced by aluminum. But on the right is a newer conductor, modern, high performance, carbon fiber core reinforced by aluminum. These are stronger, they carry more, they also sag less, which can be a safety benefit as well. They can reduce line loss, more resilient to extreme weather. So again, this technology exists now. And to highlight how this is already rolling out in a few parts of the country, I'll mention just a couple quick case studies. In Pennsylvania, the utility worked to address congestion on some historically bottlenecked transmission lines. They deployed the sensors I mentioned. They were able to increase line capacity by 16%. They reduced congestion costs by $65 million. They were able to defer a transmission line rebuild, which saved tens of millions more. In New York, the utility wanted to push power off of overloaded circuits, put them onto other underutilized lines. As a result, a huge increase in capacity was unlocked. They report saving the utility $10 million in other upgrades they were considering. And in Montana, the utility put in 11 miles of new lines using these new transmission lines. They report increasing their line capacity by 78%, reducing construction costs, reducing costs for retrofitting and raising towers, which again are costs they were already considering that now they're not going to need to do. So again, this policy is starting to show up across the country. Policymakers are embracing AT&Ts as kind of a low-hanging fruit solution, part of an all-of-the-above strategy on modernizing the grid. Over the last 3 years, 18 states have passed laws related to ATTs. Montana actually started this just a couple years ago in 2023. It's now in states across the country, including Virginia, Arizona. In the past year, we've seen Utah, Indiana, Ohio, South Carolina, so it's really starting to spread, encouraging this technology use. A bunch of different policy approaches. I won't spend a lot of time today on this, but just to quickly mention a few of the different approaches states are taking that can include utility planning, have the utilities consider these technologies as they plan for the future. Could include a commission assessment, have the PUC study these technologies. It could include congestion targeting, so specifically looking at existing bottlenecks, permitting reform, a popular topic right now across the country. Several states, including Arizona, South Carolina, Colorado, have already taken steps to expedite permitting on these types of projects. Cost recovery, right? The state can ensure that the utilities are recovering costs. And some states are starting with studies, right? Tasking state agencies or regulators with investigating the benefits and the costs. So we're starting to see bill language out there in an increasing amount. We're happy to follow up if that's helpful to talk about what works and what we've seen across other states. Couple of examples in the slide. But really just wanted to leave it there. We really appreciate this opportunity to raise this issue before you. Really appreciate the committee's interest in the topic. We're seeing across the country ATTs really take off. We're seeing more and more action to encourage their use. My colleague, again, Yaron, his contact information is included in this presentation, so easy to find us at Pew, and just wanted to emphasize that we're not just coming here to mention this, but we're very happy to remain available to answer questions, help with policy, any way we can help out whenever and however needed. We are very happy to do that. So with that, I want to thank you very much. Happy to take questions if there are any, but we look forward to keeping in touch.
Absolutely. So we already have a question lined up for you from Delegate Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Sir, I want to maybe return to slide number 8,
Sure.
if you could.
I will try.
And by the way, thank you for making the drive from Washington, D.C. On short notice.
Oh, of course. I'm sure it's going back.
Perfect.
Just took a while. Is that the one?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the far right box indicates that the Montana Dakota utilities increased capacity on existing lines by 78% and reduced their construction costs by 40%. Included in those construction costs, was that also the material cost?
Oh, that is a good question. I'm going to have to go back and check. I don't want to guess on that. But yeah, that could be significant. So
That's totally fine for you to take your time and get that to us, but obviously there's been a lot of questions both about where new transmission lines could go and then also, obviously the cost and who bears it, right? And
Right.
so if there's a better way to do that, we would find that very interesting. And then if you could go maybe a few slides back in your presentation, you went where you detailed congestion pricing.
yeah, I think it doesn't like going, you don't like going backward.
Right there,
That
yeah.
one? Oh, one too many.
Terrific. Could you go into a little bit more detail about those congestion costs? As you defined it, I think that you said that the net result, if they're looking at these quote unquote congestion costs, are that due to the various transmission line availability, that the electricity that was dispatched was from a higher cost daily generating unit?
So there are a few ways this can increase costs. One is because, right, the systems are set up for the lowest cost electricity to go where needed first, right? Look out for the consumer. So there's costs when that congestion causes the electricity to not, I don't want to oversimplify it, right? But to get the cheapest electricity out to where it's needed first. But there also can be infrastructure costs to make sure that the electricity gets to where it's needed. So, sorry if that's a little,
No, it's
vague.
it's
but-
okay, and
Yeah.
I understand that you're new with Pew, and I really appreciate you being here. I just want to make sure that I understand sort of what is included in that definition and that supposed cost, because obviously, in the Appalachian Power territory in West Virginia, it's a fixed resource rate. So we've got the cost of our generation, the cost of running it, and that's it. It's an FRR utility. We're typically not purchasing off PJM. We could, but obviously, folks have said that even coal and even natural gas, as it compares to a daily rate of solar, may be actually more expensive because there's some cost to the fuel, whereas you just have the capital cost on the solar in the first place. Effectively, are you saying that transmission or a lack of additional transmission to some of these additional projects that might be outside of my state are actually driving revenue to our generation in West Virginia?
Yeah, so yeah, that's well said. And as you might imagine, this is really about the transmission as opposed to where it's starting or what the energy source is, right? So it's essentially agnostic to the energy source. It's just how are we going to get it to where it needs to be in the most efficient way.
Sure, but it's not just an amortized or maintenance O&M cost of the transmission lines. It's the definition here is that it's coming from a source that otherwise may not have been dispatchable. I guess what I'm saying is that $1.75 billion additional dollars to coal and natural gas?
So, yeah, I can get back to you on the specifics of how that number was arrived at, but again, it's agnostic to the source, if that helps.
Sure. Well, we can look at what's dispatched at any given point in the day, and I think any of them that have some cost of fuel probably would be the ones that would be advantaged there. So, all right, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, thanks.
Chair now recognizes the delegate from the 88th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for being here. In your presentation, focusing more on modernizing the electric grid, and I'm going to give you an out already. This may be beyond the scope of your knowledge and what you're talking about, but significantly in West Virginia right now, a lot of us are struggling with power line transmissions across our districts and all the rest of that. If I hearken back to FERC Commissioner Mark Christie's written comments from earlier this year, he wrote that a core principle of utility law and regulation for decades is that consumers can only be forced to pay for costs for assets that are used and useful to them. I'm curious if you're working with the Fed or if you're aware of anything that the Fed is doing. In this day and age, no longer are we, little isolated islands where that electricity being generated at the plant down the street is serving that county or the counties around it. Instead, it's a commodity that we're, transporting across the country at times. And curious if, again, there's any federal activity that potentially we could engage with as well with regards to this process.
I think that's an excellent question. Thank you. I think we're at Pew, not at the point yet where we're having those conversations, but we're certainly aware of the federal piece of this, right? But that's why we're focused first at the state level. Where can we make a difference, right? Where can we be impactful so that you can avoid some of those difficult conversations, some of those difficult decisions when it comes to siting infrastructure. If this is a way to reduce some of that, then we think it's helpful. So we know it's incremental. We know there might be some bigger picture issues, as you point out, at play. And we hope to engage in them as well, but I wouldn't say we have too much to report at that level right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions for the presenter? Seeing none, thank you, Ken. You're excused, but thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda will be an update on implementation of the coal provisions of House Bill 2014 from the regular session of 25 by Charlotte Lane, the chairman of the Public Service Commission of West Virginia. Oh, Charlotte, you've testified before. That's not necessary.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Ken, for that presentation. That was very enlightening. So I am Charlotte Lane, Chairman of the Public Service Commission of West Virginia, and I am here to talk to you today about the coal provisions of House Bill 2014, which is more known as the Microgrid Bill. First of all, I need to say that the Commission's #1 responsibility is to make sure that all of our folks in West Virginia have adequate resources or adequate utilities and at the best possible price. Now, sometimes that is very difficult, especially in these times when prices are rising, and as all of you have heard, I'm sure, from all of your constituents, most of the major utilities in this state have come in for rate cases, but rest assured that we look at those costs very closely and do the best we can to try to balance the interests of reliable service and reasonable prices. So having said that, and you heard the earlier presentation, the United States today is facing a reliability problem. Nationwide, there are more retirements of generation than there are new generation coming onto the grid. And this legislature, having recognized that, in last year in the microgrid bill, added provisions relating to our coal-fired units in West Virginia. Now, 89% of our generation in West Virginia comes from coal. So that means that all of our power plants, or most of our power plants, are run by coal. And because of the EPA and other issues relating to the past, these coal plants we have required that they extend and stay in operation until 2040. But because of the importance of the coal generation, this legislature and the Public Service Commission recognizes that we need to try to keep those coal generating plants operating as long as possible. And with that, the coal provisions of 2014 required that the two major utilities, the two major electric utilities in the state, or four, I guess, when you call Mon Power and PE and APCO and Wheeling Power, that they file with the commission an integrated resource plan that tells what they are going to be doing in the future. And as part of this plan, they are also supposed to tell us how they are going to be able to generate longer than 2040, how they can extend the life of these plants, what it's going to cost, how they can make the coal plants more efficient, increase the heat rate. And so all of that is right now pending before the commission. We put out an order in May requiring the utilities to file their integrated resource plans, or IRPs, by October 1st. And the utilities have done that. And as part of that process, we have set procedural schedules for hearings on those plans. And one is both of them are in May, a week apart. And what the commission will be looking at in that, in those proceedings, is examining what the utilities have filed, determine what is in the best interests of our customers and what is good for the utilities, look at the cost of what they are proposing, and then we can modify those plans, we can reject them, or we can accept them. And so what will happen at these hearings in May is the utilities will come in, they will explain all of their filings, what the costs are, and we will look at that very closely. Part of 2014 also talked about how to maximize the use of the coal-fired plants and try to determine how they could reach a 69% capacity factor. And that doesn't mean that they have to. It's just what would they propose that they can get to that? And so, of course, the big issue in running our coal-fired plants is the cost of fuel. And 2014 also allows for the utilities to enter into index coal contracts so that they can index the price that they pay for coal to the PJM market, so that trying to keep the plants competitive rather than buying power off of PJM. And so we're in the process of looking at all of that in an effort to try to make sure that we keep our coal-fired plants operating and that we can provide upgrade and look at the costs very carefully. Because as most of you probably know, to bring on new generation in West Virginia or any place, it's going to be very, very expensive. Now, we are going to have new generation, and it's my understanding that Mon Power will be filing soon a proposal to build gas generation to the tune of 1,200 megawatts. And so that filing will come soon, either by the end of this year or early next year. And we will be looking at that proposal and what it costs and look at that very carefully and decide what we are going to do. But even with the filing of new generation for, and probably mostly gas generation, the Public Service Commission is committed to keeping the coal-fired plants running, and this legislature several years ago said that the coal-fired plants cannot be shut down without the approval of the Public Service Commission, and I can tell you that we are not going to give that approval, that the effect of burning and keeping those plants open, not only is it good for reliability, but it also, when you look at all of the advantages to the state of having those generation plants running, the economic effects and the adders on are just astronomical, and that we would be very foolish to let those plants idle. So that is basically what we are doing. The legislation also also set forth 3 rulemaking. The first one is talking about the capacity markets and why APCO should stay on its fixed resource requirement, and talking about the reliability pricing model that Mon Power has, and we are evaluating those rules, and those rules have to be filed with for legislative approval, and we are evaluating and working on those rules. There are 2 other rulemakings that are permissive, and we will be working on them at the proper time. Those relate to the fuel pricing, and the last one relates to relates to the IRPs, the Integrated Resource Plans. But we didn't do any rulemaking on that yet because, well, first of all, I'm not sure it's needed, but with the filings that have come in and that we're having proceedings on that, then if we decide that we need to do rules after we get into the whole process, then we will do that. But it does not require legislative approval. Now, with that, I will be glad to try to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Commissioner Lane? Chair recognizes the delegate from the 79th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I had a few questions. If I understood you correctly, I believe you just testified that you will not approve shutting down a coal plant in West Virginia. Is
That's
that
right.
Now, what if the documentation in that case showed that it would save West Virginia ratepayers money?
We always evaluate all of the facts, and as I have said, the implications and the economic effect overall of those plants on the state's economy would not lead me to believe that it would be in the best interests of West Virginia to shut those plants down.
So you've already decided in a case that hasn't even been filed how you would vote?
I think that I've been very clear when all of these issues have come up that I think our coal-fired plants are valuable to West Virginia and that we should keep them open and running. And all you have to do is look across the country and see the panic in some states where they do not have enough generation, and you can't rely upon renewables because it's not base load, and you can't rely upon solar because the sun doesn't always shine, and windmills the wind doesn't run. So we have to rely upon base load, and that means coal, and hopefully we're going to have natural gas generation built in this state.
So again, even if it means increasing electric rates to keep the coal plants open, you would vote for that?
Nobody has filed to close the plants, and probably the only people that would actually be able to file something like that would be the utilities. And the utilities see the advantage of keeping baseload generation.
You mentioned the 69% capacity factor.
Yes.
Would you agree that House Bill 2014 does not require coal plants to run at 69% capacity factor?
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay. And have you looked at the capacity factors of West Virginia's coal plants since House Bill 2014 became effective?
We get those reports, and sometimes they're running a lot and sometimes not much, and it all depends upon, generally, the cost of coal, and of coal prices is very beneficial. And I am hopeful that we will be able to get the coal prices more in line so that it is more economic to run the plants rather than buying off the PJM market.
Okay, then I do have a couple questions related to the coal prices. So my understanding is that there's a report that's filed with the Public Service Commission. I think it is called like a coal report. And those reports document every shipment of coal to a power plant, where it's purchased from and how much is paid. Is that right?
Yes.
Are those reports available to the public?
I think so. Rob?
Or are they posted online?
Are those coal reports, I mean, the coal reports are required by law to be filed, and I think that they're available to the public. Yes, they are.
Okay, but are they posted online, or does the public need to request them?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Would you agree that a few years ago there was a period of time when, due to various factors, utilities entered into coal contracts at high coal costs, like upwards of $200 a ton?
There was a period of time when the coal plants were running low on coal, and because of various factors, including the fact that a lot of coal mines had closed because of economic reasons, that the utilities had a hard time finding coal, and they may have paid higher prices, yes.
And those are documented in the coal reports?
I'm sure they are.
Okay. Do you know which coal companies entered into contracts at those inflated levels?
No, I do not, and I would not use the word inflated. I would say that they were market prices, and right off the top of my head, I can't remember who the companies were.
Would it surprise you to hear that companies owned by the family of our former governor at the time when he was governor entered into those contracts?
As I said, I do not know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The chair now recognizes the delegate from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman Lane, thank you for being here today and for your testimony. To expand just a little bit on the PSC role, but in a broader kind of PJM RTO perspective. Facilities, generation facilities in West Virginia, by and large, we're a net exporter of energy. Is that true?
Yes.
So your role, or the commission's role with respect to that, you testified that making decisions or looking out for the best interest of West Virginians, but do you also have a role to kind of look at the impact of generation on the broader PJM marketplace?
Yes, and if there's excess capacity and it's sold, that money comes back to the benefit of the ratepayers.
So a facility, whether it's coal or natural gas or any other energy form, would, if it's running at a higher capacity factor, that is going to have the net, by and large, it's going to have the net impact of reducing rates to all consumers, including West Virginians, correct?
Yes,
So it behooves us to basically run hard to spread our costs, particularly fixed cost, over more kilowatt hours of generation, and the net impact of that is lower rates for all users, whether they're West Virginians or in an adjoining state in the PJM grid.
yes,
Okay, so you understand that that's part of the
Yes.
commission's responsibility,
Yes.
and therefore, just for the state to kind of look out for itself is kind of perhaps not serving that greater RTO perspective.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Chair now recognizes the senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if Mon Power builds the 1,200 megawatt gas plant that they just announced, is it your opinion that there will be enough demand that both of Mon's coal plants will need to stay open?
I'm sorry,
That both of Mon Power's coal plants will need to stay open with the gas plant also?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair now recognizes Delegate Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chair, appreciate you being here as always. Really quick, going back to some of the questions from the gentleman from the 79th District. A couple of years ago, and I think it led to a sort of long-term filing where I think the PSC ultimately said no. But there was a time when the cost of coal got really high. And this was about Christmas, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago. And I think some of our folks ran out of enough of the correct blend of coal to run in our power plants. And as a result, we had to buy electricity on the PJM open market at a very high cost time. Was that the time frame that the gentleman was referring to and that you were responding to?
I am not sure what time frame he was referring to, but that is probably correct. It was
Okay.
2021 to 2023 when the coal plants, the APCO plants did not have enough coal to run and were having to buy power off the PJM market. And had they had the coal, they would have been making money for the ratepayers. And as a result, because all fuel purchases are supposed to be prudent and reasonable, we disallowed a recovery of, I think, $237 million.
Okay. And so he went into sort of the pricing and contracts. At that time, I think, and I know there's been a lot of back and forth surrounding this, but that was typically they were on some very short-term contracts. Is that correct? I mean, the gentleman was just mentioning some sort of a high price because of an
Delegate,
immediate market.
I am not sure whether they were short-term or long-term, but let me just say that Purchasing fuel is an art, and what looks good today and you enter into the contract might not be good a year from now. But you have to look at the facts at the time that you entered into the contract and whether that was a reasonable decision, and then you go on from there. And over the years, the utilities enter into short-term contracts and long-term contracts. It's a diverse portfolio. And when we have the fuel review cases, we look at those costs. But like I said, I mean, think about it yourself. You make a decision today based upon all the facts you know, and if the facts change a year from now, you just have to go on.
Sure. Completely understand that. Just trying to understand why the cost of coal was that high. I think that was right around the time that Russia invaded the Ukraine. Am I correct about that?
Probably.
Yeah, and that's when coal prices went to about $400 a ton on the spot price in Europe.
Well, and with the way that a lot of the coal mines have shut down, it made the supply short.
Yeah. Well, I just think maybe it's better to blame Putin on that one than our former governor. Final question for you, ma'am, just as we're looking at what represents 89% of our overall utilization in the state, our energy generation mix. I think you attended the governor's energy conference about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there an announcement from one of our utilities that if a data center sited in their territory, I think it was Appalachian Power, that electricity rates would actually go down?
That may have been what was said. And let me just say that the best way to bring electric rates down is to expand the customer base. And data centers that will bring increased load, and as long as the ratepayers are not actually on the hook for any upgrades, then that is beneficial to the state and to the ratepayers.
Well, I was there as well, and I did hear the president and CEO of Appalachian Power make that statement. And so I just wanted to make sure that you heard it as well, and hopefully everybody in the public hears this, that data centers in the Appalachian Power territory for sure will drive down rates, and that's a very good thing, and that if you're advocating against data centers, you're advocating for higher electricity rates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Now the chair recognizes the delegate from the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Chairman Lane. I just want to make sure that I heard what you said correctly, which is that the PSC is not going to approve any closure of a coal-fired power plant?
Yes, that's what I said.
And that statement goes until what year are we talking?
Right now, we want them to run at least the APCO plants to 2040 and the Mon Power plants as long as possible, and with the provisions of 2014 allowing for the utilities to come in and tell us what needs to be done at those plants to extend the life of the plants and to get a better heat rate and what the costs are. We will evaluate that, and hopefully we can extend the life of those plants to 2050 or beyond. There's no reason why those plants, if we provide sufficient upgrades, cannot stay working longer.
But what if an emergency happens and they have to replace the boiler and it costs $1 billion, and you're saying even in that circumstance you are not going to let it close?
If the boiler has to be replaced, then we will look at the costs and we will make the appropriate decision.
What if a fully funded nuclear power plant from President Trump wants to come in and make thousands of megawatts of power and it's cheaper than coal? You're still not going to let the coal plants close?
We are in favor of all forms of energy. And let me just say a couple things. The earlier speaker talked about permitting and permitting reform. If you look at our records, we cite solar and wind farms in less than 4 months if the owner has provided all of the information. Now, so we're in favor, and we have approved every solar and every wind farm. And we are encouraged that nuclear power may come to West Virginia, and we will look at that very carefully and try to get all of the regulatory work done as quickly as possible. And at some point, coal will have to be replaced by something else. And hopefully, and that can be nuclear, it can be natural gas. But until then, we have to keep those coal-fired plants open to keep the lights on.
So without the cases and the facts in front of you, you are saying right now that you are not going to close coal-fired power plants?
Yes,
Or is your job to work for the ratepayers or the power plants? Which interest is more valuable?
The statute requires that all of our decisions balance the interests of the ratepayers, the utility, and the state's economy as a whole. And I challenge anybody to say that we are not doing that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. Chair now recognizes the delegate from the 83rd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. Just to clarify, because this has been kind of batted around, and maybe I don't want anyone to leave here with any confusion or anyone who may be listening outside of here. As much as I absolutely, genuinely appreciate hypotheticals, but just to stick with the facts on the ground right now, has the PSC been approached by one of our current utilities with the request to close an existing coal-fired power plant and replace it with a guaranteed cheaper base load source? Have you received that request?
No.
Thank you very much.
No further questions for our presenter. Chair recognizes the co-chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lane. I recently returned from a meeting of the National Energy Council, and we had a presentation from the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. And in that, the presentation indicated to us that there are 3 different categories of risk to different grids in the country. And the PJM grid is in the high-risk category of possibly falling short of meeting the generation goals to meet the demand. Do you share that similar assessment from the North American Grid Reliability Corporation?
Yes, I do, and that further emphasizes why we need to keep running our coal-fired plants.
Thank you very much. And I would just share with the audience here, this isn't a question posed at you. Another part of this presentation we had from another presenter indicated that if we build data centers which will increase the demand upon existing utilities and they generated a higher capacity factor, it would result in a reduction, reinforcing something you said earlier, of about 16% in people's electric rates. That's one presentation we had at this conference. Would you agree with that?
I am not sure. about the percentage. All I can say is that we can hope that we can increase the customer base so that we can reduce or stabilize electric rates.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no further questions, Madam Chair, thank you for being with us today.
Let me, may I add one more thing? Today at 12:30 in the Cultural Center, Clay Riley is moderating a panel to talking about rate making. And so we have somebody from the Public Service Commission, a CPA, a lawyer, and APCO talking about rate making and what goes into the process and all of the things that the Public Service Commission considers when looking at rate cases. And I would encourage all of you to come because it would be very educational. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, moving on to our next item on the agenda will be a discussion on natural gas meeting future demands of power plant production and artificial intelligence by Charlie Burd, President of the Gas and Oil Association of West Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the invite to be here today. My name is Charlie Burd. I am the president of the Gas and Oil Association of West Virginia. Many of you may have heard I'm going to retire. That is a true statement. And I'm very pleased to say that Rebecca McPhail, former executive director of the West Virginia Manufacturers Association, is going to be my replacement. So you will see us jointly together at the session this year. And afterwards, it'll be more to Rebecca than it is to me, and she will do an absolutely outstanding job. Thank you. Well, thank you very much now that we have a PowerPoint behind me. All right, am I moving the slides right here?
Yeah, there's a clicker right there, the down arrow advances.
Oh, right here, I'm sorry. Down arrow is forward. Okay, here we go. So I always like to take the opportunity to give you just a picture of how important the natural gas industry is to the state of West Virginia. In 2024, we produced almost 3.3 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in this state. And when we started drilling horizontally back in 2008, that was only 256 BCF. So we're 13 times more natural gas today than we were then. And we are the 5th largest producer of natural gas in the country, losing just a spot this past year by a couple BCF. Let me just say that 90% of the natural gas we produce in this state goes to out-of-state markets. And we want to correct that. We want to use way more of our natural gas in-state to benefit West Virginians to a greater degree. West Virginia has the 3rd largest natural gas reserves in the country at about 48 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. And there's storage fields that line I-79 north. It is a phenomenal asset to have at our disposal. Of that, 533 billion cubic feet of natural gas is in that storage. And that is a great buffer to have in case of some unforeseen catastrophe. And our storage represents about 6% of the nation's entire storage. We have about 4,000 miles of transmission lines in the state. That's a lot of pipe in a lot of places, and available to serve lots of projects as they come to fruition. We always like to say, we take pride in West Virginia, that we do have an industrial heritage in this state. We understand manufacturing, we understand power production, we understand drilling for oil and natural gas, we understand coal mining. You know, we take risk in this state that other states don't take. We're an energy producing state. Let's be proud of it, because we serve a heck of a lot of people who don't like us, who live in energy consuming states. So let's keep that in mind as we advance, you know, the production of energy in our state. Look where we are. We are strategically located within a half-day's drive of all the major population centers in the East. And that includes now the new data centers that line the East Coast. You know, just a recent study by the AXPC, the American Exploration and Production Council, shows that we have about 84,000 jobs in this state that are attributed to oil and gas. I'm proud of that. And that coincides pretty well with the West Virginia totals for direct and indirect jobs. We are an important industry to the state of West Virginia. Just since we started drilling horizontally back in 2008, almost $6 billion worth of revenues have been generated in severance taxes and in county property taxes. I don't have the breakdown of each. It's about 50-50. And of course, the counties directly benefit from the property tax, and the other severance tax goes straight to the general revenue fund of the state for the legislatures to allocate. And we don't want to forget that on top of what we invest in property taxes and severance taxes, let's not forget payroll taxes. I don't have it up there. But we also have about 40,000 royalty owners in the state, and they all benefit from the production of natural gas. There we go. You know, over the weekend I saw The Wizard of Oz on TV. One of my favorite movies as a child growing up. I'm not the Wizard of Oz, so I don't have any crystal ball in front of me. But here's kind of what we've determined after discussing internally the bullet points that we wanted to share with this group. Number one, there is no way, no doubt in our minds as an industry that we can't rise to the occasion to serve any oil and gas needs in the state. We have proven it in the past, and we can prove it in the future. And we have an industry here that's willing to increase drilling and can readily increase drilling as the need is foreseen. Drilling just to drill and putting wells over here in what they call DUCs, D-U-C, drilled and uncompleted, is not where we're going to be. We want to drill, we want to produce those wells, and we want it to go to markets. That's what we can do, and that's what we have done. You can look outside today. I drove in from Parkersburg and didn't get any snow till I got into Jackson County, but it's snowing and it's cold, and that's good. I like cold weather. And so we have current projections based on weather that our total storage in the state may reach levels lower than had been originally anticipated. That's okay, that's why it's there. Then what happens in the spring, we come back like we have in the past, and we drill ourselves right back into full storage, or we produce ourselves right back into full storage. We've done it in the past, we'll do it in the future. And producing natural gas, storing natural gas, and having natural gas is simply not an issue. About 140,000 MCF a day goes to produce 1 gigawatt of power for for a data center. That only represents about 1.5% of our daily production here. I don't like to name names, but I heard a number the other day. Antero, the largest producer in the state, produces about 3 BCF a day. And they're one of about 15 who produce horizontally in this state. Others who produce are here in this room. And they are the best producers in the country operate in the Appalachian Basin. The best. And they do it right, and they do it with every consideration for the environment and for public safety and for the citizens of West Virginia. So until something would happen that pricing would change as it did, you know, pre-Marcellus, we have operators who are integrated throughout the basin and have supply contracts other places that can backfill any need we have in an emergency or as the need arises. That is the part of our industry. It's like an interstate highway system. When you see an interstate highway, that's a transmission line. Exits are pipelines off and pipelines on. That's how we operate in this state. That's how the natural gas industry operates in the country. You guys have done us have done us a great service, a great job in passing a couple very important bills over the last 2 or 3 years. The first one was Senate Bill 188 back in 2023. I'm not going to go into all the details of Senate Bill 188. You know, you guys read them. They're thick and they're complicated. But the bottom line is it streamlines permitting and an appeal process to construct and operate natural gas electric generation facilities. And that's what we want to do. We want to supply natural gas to the residents of the state of West Virginia through the use of natural gas. Senate Bill 802 kind of ties in with 2014, excuse me. It says that new facilities, brand new facilities, they have the ability to take direct service. And that direct service has to meet qualifications, has to be a certain volume, and you also have to work with the public utilities in the area to assure that the customer is served in an appropriate manner and with an appropriate cost. We thank those that worked with us on these bills, including the chairman, who wanted to make sure that how we do this, like she said before, is fair across the board. And that's what we want to. I was asked to put just some stuff together on about 5 gigawatts of natural gas combined cycle generation that's out here in the future. Anything you read on these slides, there's no inside information. This is all public. I don't have inside information. That's not what I do. But I do work with those folks, so you know we have intel. But let's just real quickly congratulate ourselves. Finally, somebody woke up, because Ohio and Ohio and Pennsylvania have darn near 3 dozen of these babies sitting around burning gas, making electricity for customers. And now we're kind of where we need to be to get started. Wolf Summit just had a groundbreaking with First Energy a few weeks ago. Excuse me, not Wolf Summit, on the First Energy one. Just had a groundbreaking with them just a few weeks ago. 1,200 megawatt combined cycle natural gas plant. Exact location hasn't been determined yet, but they'll get it figured out. They're going to use West Virginia produced natural gas. 3,200 construction jobs at peak. Another 3 dozen or so permanent jobs at the completion of the construction and going online to produce power. And generating $68 million in local tax revenues. That is a huge number. That is big to the people of West Virginia who live in these small communities, and how proud we are of First Energy. They plan to be online with this 2030, 2031. Wolf Summit. That's a 625 megawatt, a 0.6 gigawatt plant, combined cycle natural gas, originally proposed in 2017. I can remember a set of original developers coming into my office back then and saying, here's what we want to do. Took a long time, changed hands a couple times, but finally, construction started this fall. Back in September, 120-acre site near Clarksburg. $1.2 billion in investment, 500 construction jobs at peak. It's under construction right now. The electricity is already committed to Old Dominion Electric Cooperative, long-term power purchase agreement, and this station is situated in the PJM interconnection. So this is a merchant plant that's going to be providing power to the PJM. You only see one power plant. I have two on my sheet because I added one this morning before I came over. Forgot all about it. CPV Shea Energy Center, Competitive Power Ventures. Back in 2022 or before, they walked into my office and said, hey, we're going to do something out in Doddridge County, West Virginia. And they're working toward that. In April of 24, the PSC granted them their siting certificate. 2,000 megawatt, 2 gig power plant, combined cycle natural gas. And on top of just what they're going to do with the power plant construction, they also have to build transmission line, electric transmission line, 500 kV high voltage line, $3 billion wholesale generation plant capable of providing electricity to 1.8 million homes. 1.8 million homes. We have 1.8 million people in the state. And now they're talking tripling, if you've got 3 people per household added up. That's a lot of people getting electricity in a very efficient and effective way. 2,000 jobs construction peak, and then another 50 or 60 permanent jobs after that plant is completed. They're kind of the real deal. All these plants are real. The one that's not up here is called Longview Power. It is in Mon County, West Virginia. And I apologize to you, Mr. Chairman, that I failed to include that one when I sent you my PowerPoint. I will send Candace an upgraded version. 2020 applied for a siting certificate to build a 1,200, 1.2 gigawatt combined cycle natural gas-fired power plant. And then they're also going to do, I think another, is it 70 megawatts solar, some point in the future at a site north of the existing plant that they currently operate. And the natural gas will be supplied by a 20-inch diameter pipeline from TransCanada in Pennsylvania. That's one of our big companies, big transmission line. I would also say that if I can just drop back real quick to the Wolf Summit plant, natural gas has already been laid into that plant. That pipeline is completed, and it too is supplied by a West Virginia-based producer. Construction was to have begun on Longview in April of this year. However, they had some setbacks due to COVID and geopolitical issues, supply chain issues, and other disruptions from about 22 on. And just recently, the PSC granted an extension to Longview to begin construction in 2029. And I believe they have a 5-year window up to 2034 to have that plant running. Again, Longview is an IPP, an independent power producer, and they also will go into the PJM grid. So there we go, 5 gigs of power. I think the governor is very pleased that this industry has listened to what he's asked, and we are here to try to help him achieve 50 by 50 as fast as we can. My concluding statements. Natural gas-fired power plants offer a tremendous amount of flexibility. They can be located very near or at data centers or major industrial projects, industrial parks and that type of thing. We can further develop or enhance our interstate pipeline, which allows West Virginia businesses existing and new to benefit from the availability of natural gas provided right literally to their doorsteps. We are the fuel of the choice, the choice fuel of the future. We are the fuel of choice of the future, period. I know we have other power plants operating in the state, but none can react as quickly as we can, more efficiently than we can, and provide electricity at hopefully a cheaper cost to West Virginia citizens. The entire state benefits by natural gas-fired electric generation. And using natural gas as a catalyst to drive this electric power generation, AI and data centers, that should not be considered to create competition between fossil fuels in the state. That's not what Chairman Lane wants. That's not what the oil and gas industry wants. That's not what you want or the people of West Virginia want. We need to work cooperatively together, but our plan is to produce more electricity used by citizens of this state with fuel-efficient natural gas. We should really use this as a model to incorporate sound market-based decisions to enhance our ability to compete regionally, nationally, and globally in the AI race. This is a battle not here. This is a battle with China and Russia and other places around this country who want to defeat us in this particular area of opportunity for our country. And with that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we do have a question for our presenter. The chair now recognizes the senator from Wayne.
Thank you. We had a long conversation in Huntington, if you recall, at the clubhouse there. We had that meeting, and one of my concerns, and again, I'm going to speak as an everyday person in West Virginia, not as an expert on the coal power plants or the gas energy. But we had talked, and I asked you that what are the obstacles of lowering the price for the consumers in West Virginia? And you had said there are no obstacles. We're not competing against coal. So I asked you a question. I said, would you be willing to sit down with the Coal Association and really work out a solution that can lower the cost for the West Virginia residents? And you said you would. I also talked to the Coal Association, and they agreed to do that as well, and that we could sit down and just write out some legislation, some solutions. I'm a solution-based person. I'm not an expert in coal and gas, but I think I told you my background is military. So when we have a problem, we get a solution. You know, we work it out. We don't have a choice. So I guess my question is, are you still willing to sit down with the Coal Association and with some of the legislators and map out a solution to lower the prices of energy in the state of West Virginia?
One would have to say yes, that you should never miss an opportunity to sit down and try to determine what kind of market-based decisions can be made that best suit the needs of West Virginia and its citizens. So, yes.
Thank you. Because one last thing I just want to say, I get it. We are an energy state.
Indeed.
We have neglected that for decades. We now have an opportunity to surge forward and use the resources of this state to help the economy and, in general, the people of West Virginia. So I appreciate that. I think that, again, I think that solutions can be made and for the betterment of the people of West Virginia. So I will touch base with you later on, and we'll figure that out.
Thank you. And I would be very clear with you, transparent, that Chris Hamilton with the Coal Association and I are extremely good friends, and we have these conversations from time to time.
I'm glad you said that. I guess my question is, and I'm confused a little bit because we don't have obstacles. We have agreements between the two power players in West Virginia, but yet we can't come up with a solution. I'm confused on that because that just doesn't seem like, it doesn't make logical sense to me that we've got everyone in agreement and we all both understand that the cost of energy needs to be lowered in the state of West Virginia. And if you have the two power players in the same room to write legislation, we should be able to come up with a solution. So I'll be looking forward to that, and I'll get with Chris as well. And thank you.
Set on the committee, maybe.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions for our presenter, Charlie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it very much.
So any other business come before the committee? Seeing none, the chair moves to the co-chair to make a final motion.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I move we adjourn.
Co-chair makes the motion that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.